All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spiritual Saturday live show with Silvia Isachsen. I'm so excited today because it's our 1 year anniversary. Me and my community welcome you all. Really excited to be here. We have a special guest, Dr. Laurence Brock, and he has a PhD in spirituality because he had an NDE, a near-death experience, which he's going to explain for the first 30 minutes of the show. And then the last 30 minutes, we're going to do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments. So we're going to go through his near-death experience and then answer your questions. So just a few more things. I want to let you know that I'm really appreciative that we've got almost 11,000 subscribers after 1 year, which is tremendous. I feel your love and your support, and thank you. And if you do decide that you do want to support, subscribe today. In order to chat in the chat area, what we've done, me and my community, is that we have made it so that you have to be a subscriber to comment, so it's safe, so that you can talk about spirituality in a place where you have open ears, open hearts, nobody's judging, and I really love that about our community. There have been people here that have been here since day one, and we welcome you today. Okay, also, let me see what my thing. So anything can happen because it is live. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward right to the part where Dr. Laurence Brock is going to talk about his near-death experience. But if you want to ask questions and the show has already transpired, you can still ask them, because Dr. Brock and I have decided that we're going to come here for, a few days, maybe even a week, answering your questions. We know that you have a lot of questions out there. And finally, if you'd like to become a member, you can do so by clicking the link below. If you are on iOS devices, Apple devices, you have to be on desktop, and otherwise you can do it directly from your mobile. Okay, I got that all out of the way, and I want my members to know that I've got your questions already lined up, one from Chris B and one from Cheryl. Let me say hello to everyone, and then I'm going to bring on Dr. Brock. By the way, Dr. Brock is really popular on TikTok, so if anybody out there is on TikTok, you have to watch his little TikTok videos. Okay, so I want to say a special thanks to Lisa and Shelley today for saying hello before we even got here, sharing their love. Hello, Shelley G, which is the room moderator. Chris B, hello. North Song is here. And also, Craig is here. Craig, you are a regular now, and everyone else. So without further ado, I will be addressing you, my friends, in the latter half of the show, but for the first half, we're going to do something different. We're actually going to listen to Dr. Brock's story. So without further ado, I'm going to add him to the screen here. Let's see if we've got everything going here. Okay, there you are. Dr. Brock,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's nice to be
so
here. I feel very welcome. I appreciate that.
yeah, we've had an opportunity to chat a little bit about your near-death experience, and let's tell the funny story how we recorded the whole thing and and there was an echo. So we will do a redo for his near-death experience, but we thought we wouldn't want to make you wait, so we're going to do this today. So we are going to show an example of your work, Dr. Brock, at the end. I know that you're going to be answering questions, and you've actually
Yeah.
made your whole work about spirituality. So without further ado,
Yes,
could we talk about your near-death experience first, and then we'll talk about your work?
of course. Yeah. So I just turned 67 on June 27th, so not too long ago. And my near-death experience is when I was 22, so many years ago. And obviously I was younger. And so I had been living in Longmont, Colorado in the United States, and decided I wanted to come back to visit my parents who lived in Rye Brook, New York. And my roommate at the time was a high school friend of mine. So his parents were from the area also. So we drove back. As soon as I think we got back like in the morning sometime, and we found out a high school friend of ours was having a party. So we wanted to go. we both went to our parents' house and rested for a few hours. And, you know, he came to pick me up and we went to this party that was in Mamaroneck, New York. And we were partying, which involved drinking and doing some other conscious altering things. Um, I had taken my mom's car because when we drove back from Colorado, we took his car. I didn't have my car with me. When I was there feeling a little high, thinking I could easily drive, but as a way to leave my car there and go back the next day and talk to the young lady who was having the party, I decided to ask my friend for a ride home, telling the hostess that I was too high to drive. About almost all the way back to my parents' house, I realized my sister needed my mom's car the next day, so I asked my friend to drive me back to the party. I didn't realize how high I was then. So he drove me back he protested. I explained to him that I was kind of mocking up being high in order to go back the next day and flirt with that girl, basically. And he drove me back to the party. I got in the car. I do still have an image of leaving the party. And even when I look at my inner vision, I should have realized then I shouldn't have driven because it was kind of, way things look when you're too high. They're not totally clear and there's a little almost too much color there, but people's outlines are not so clear. But I drove home, and in those days, people did not care that much about driving when they were drunk. It just wasn't a thing. I lived in an area that now is very populated, wasn't that populated then. So I got in the car. I don't remember actually leaving the house where the party was, but I remember walking towards the door. Like I said, I still have that image in my mind. The next thing I know, so without knowing it, I got in the car. I drove about 2/3 of the way back, even actually more. I drove almost all the way to my parents' house, obviously crashed into a car because I remember kind of leaving the party. And then I remember being out of my body in the white light, looking down. My body was leaning against the tree, and a police officer was crouching over me, looking at me. I assumed he pulled me out of the car. I never verified that. Uh, I did see my body, and my eyes were closed, obviously, and I looked like I was not alive. But everything just had a sense of making sense, and like everything just seemed so perfect, and which seems kind of strange because the car was squished. It was a little Ford Escort or some little Ford car that was totally smashed, and even I could see. I didn't Again, everything seemed fine, but the car was definitely smashed more than it looked like I could survive in there. After the accident, I went back and I looked at it. I was surprised I survived because, the steering wheel and the seat, everything was so smushed together. Um, so I was out of my body. It felt, I often describe it as like the perfect summer day. I like summer, but not too hot. There there really wasn't a temperature, but everything just felt so nice. Everything was so peaceful. All these years later, I'm still fumbling to find the right words for it, but it just felt like everything was good. I also had a sense of knowing, my whole family connection and just that everything was okay and everything was good. I didn't have, um, when I try to look inside now and see how to describe it and what I knew, it's hard to put into words, but it's kind of like just everything in the world was okay. Um, so I was looking this way, the tree was there, the body was there, it was dark there, but also everything I was in was all this white light. Behind me, even though I wasn't looking that way, there was like a ball of a different shade of white light, like a big circle. I guess it wasn't a ball because it didn't seem to have 3 dimensions. Seemed more like 1 dimension. And then in the center of that, and I start to say that, I can see the image, and the spiritual energy starts to pull me into the spirit there. there was a being that looked like a person, but a white light image of a person with a different shade of white light radiating off of that with a little bit of gold sparkles at the end of that. That being said to me, "You have to go back. Your father wants you to stay." I knew right then the father that voice was talking about was God, not my physical father. And from that perspective of everything was so good and everything was so proper, sometimes people ask me, did you have a choice? I didn't even think of having a choice. It just seemed like, well, this all makes so much sense. I went back into my body, came to 3 days later in the hospital. During those 3 days, there were a couple of times I almost came up to the surface and have some hazy visions of what was going on. Still remember after, this was actually, I was standing up, so it must have been somewhat after I first came to. I remember seeing the neurologist's face very close to me because he was talking to me and he walked like this. He said, "You're really lucky," with this smirk on his face, like, I don't know what. And I assume he meant you're lucky to be alive. One of the nurses also said to me it was touch and go for you for a while, which I assume meant about living. I never checked. It was back in a time where doctors didn't give the patients that much information. They didn't feel like that was necessary. My dad, this later I went back and checked with him. He said he came there. He was allowed to go in to see me for a moment. And he said my head, the skin on my head, he could see like inside my head because it was, you can still, if you look closely, I have the scar that goes all the way back. But they didn't really tell him what was going on either. And, I tried to ask him specific questions. I did have a Polaroid of the car that I still have a feeling it's somewhere at my dad's, but I haven't been able to find it yet. Something shifted inside of me. The one thing I noticed after definitely is when I went to touch people, my hands became very warm. It's really the only very concrete thing that happened, but I was curious about what it was. It definitely piqued my interest to find out what that was. My intuition was increased. Again, it's not, I don't know, it's not such a concrete thing, that part of it. And I became very interested in knowing, like, what happens after we die, what did happen. I know that term was near-death experience was coined around that time, but I had never heard of that. I did start to meet a lot of people. One of the very interesting things that happened after my near-death experience, I didn't go back to Colorado for a while. My mom convinced me to move back east. And one day I was sitting in my apartment and someone knocked on the door. It was pre-cell phone time, so you wouldn't, like nowadays, if someone knocks on my door, it's kind of puzzling to me because everyone always texts before coming over. It was before that. So I got up, I answered the door. There was this beautiful woman at the door, and she explained she was the sister of a good friend of mine. And she said, "Oh, my sister said something interesting about you." And this woman ended up introducing me to a Sufi sheikh who was a spiritual teacher. And so describing what happened, like what that white light was, what the white light I was in, and what the being was, I didn't know what words to put on that. I did not know. I didn't talk to anyone about it. It was like, I didn't even know if it was, it felt so real to me, but I didn't have any reference of things I knew before, like what that could possibly be. When this man started talking to me, it is interesting. I was born in a Jewish family. A Sufi sheikh, Sufism is part of the Islamic religion. He started to talk to me about a few things that really, like, that's what happened. He talked to me about Mary and Jesus a lot, which it's kind of funny in an interesting way that an Islamic teacher was talking to a Jewish young man about Christian concepts. But when he talked about how open Mary was to the Christ energy, and just the way he described it, oh, that feeling that I got described the white light all around. And then he talked about Jesus, and it was like, whoa, just again the feeling. And even when I say it now, it connects in my inner vision and stuff, that being behind me was Jesus talking to me. There was one
Interesting.
other go
Sorry,
ahead.
I'll interrupt here, but so you said that Jesus was talking to you in your near-death experience?
Yes, that white light being behind me was Jesus. Yes.
Beautiful. And
I just
so,
didn't know it at the time. And I didn't even know what to make, it was like nowadays people talk about these things. Back then it was like, who's this crazy person, basically.
and how old were you at the time? Just to give
I
people,
was 22.
so you're 22, you have this near-death experience, you get into this car accident, you're floating
Yes.
above your body, you feel this light, you feel this love. I mean, I think I would have felt the same way at 22. I don't think I would have known exactly who was, unless you're, well versed in it or you've experienced it before. And I really am appreciative of you being so forthright with the fact that you didn't know, and later on you did find out. Now that you know, how could you articulate what Jesus was expressing to you?
um Excuse me one second. I'm going to turn off my air conditioner here,
Sure, no problem. I understand it's live.
which I meant to do before. So, um, it that um, in one way, it's good that I don't know, and I still don't really know because there is always more to know there. When I talk to people, I tell them, and I'll say this to you and your audience, there is information behind what I'm saying that is the real information. When I work with people, I see things. Sometimes I don't know exactly what it is, but I do know, and I say this when I'm talking to you, listen to me. I am right. I am always right, which seems kind of arrogant, but behind the words, there's the spiritual message. And something in there really directs people in a great way. Something happened in my near death experience that caused this woman to show up at my door to meet this Sufi sheikh. And I've met many other teachers through what seems like these crazy coincidences. And um, it just, things unfold. And part of me, even now, you know, getting a specific vision sometimes or thinking that impedes what you can really know, because it's kind of what we know is concrete. And this in the spirit it is infinite, so there's always more to do.
I want to jump
So
up. What
yeah.
I'm so excited about what you're saying, and also stop on is, and everyone is, and I think when I think I told you I had that dream about Jesus, and I'm still unpacking the
Yeah.
information he gave me, and I can totally understand what you're saying. It's almost like a knowing and a feeling, and it's just present with you, and you feel so much better as a result of it.
Right, it's exciting and fun and enthusiastic. And when I sometimes I meditate, and this energy comes in, and it's, my body feels better, my emotions feel better, my mind is clear. And when I work with clients, the same thing happened. And sometimes I'm working with people, I'm kind of talking about stuff to distract them, and like the spirit sneaks in here. And then it's like they all of a sudden go, oh, I feel better. It's like, oh, yeah, that's because your mind is not trying to pin it down. And so those cool things happen. That's
So
what I like.
I don't want to make the assumption, but I imagine that you made it your life's work, your life purpose to,
Yes.
yeah, to grow spiritually, to learn, to get a PhD in spirituality, to create a counseling practice so that you can
Yeah,
help people with spirituality. So, I mean, that's really good. Thank you so much for doing that.
you're welcome. It is a lot of work. And you're saying that I have made my life's purpose, but it's also something in me is pushing me in that direction. It'd certainly be easier to have a job where you make a lot of money and not have to look at yourself so ruthlessly, and inhibitions and your patterns that are holding you back. But in one way, I don't really have much choice about it. It's just part of my nature, I guess. And the other way is, well, you might as well choose intuit and make it really cool. So yes, my doctorate is actually in something called spiritual science. And the good thing about that is a lot of it was learning to use a scientific method to validate these spiritual experiences and spiritual tools. So it's always keep using your mind, even though it's holding your mind back, and not let it take over, to look at those spiritual experiences, look at the things in your heart, the things in your gut, and how do you use them in a way to help myself to be happy and healthy and abundant, and help my clients to do that also.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
we have questions that are coming in, so I guess I
Okay,
will start with the question part. Oh,
great.
sure what just happened with my camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in the center and just allow my camera to be a
Yay.
little. Okay, and we're going solo. Good. Okay, so the first question that I have is from a member, and it is Chris B. And he's
All right, Chris.
Chris B. Yeah. And do dreams have anything to do with our spiritual world, or are they just part of the brain's material workings?
We have different kinds of dreams. So the answer is to yes and yes for that. So there are times that our dreams are just completing things from the physical world. There are times our dreams are very, very spiritual. The good thing is, a lot of times in our dreams, we can work through our karma in our dreams rather than having to do it in the physical world. Um, a lot of times we're dreaming on more than one level at the same time. So we're
Mm-hmm.
having like 5 dreams at the same time. And that's why sometimes we have dreams that make no sense, where we're someplace and then someplace else. Um, so there's God's message can come to us, God's love can come to us through our dreams. A great tool for getting that information is journaling, dream journals. But there is a practical part sometimes. If we're frustrated, we're doing something that's not working out, we'll have a dream about that, just in a way to work out the things on the physical level. But yes, the spirit comes in then. We are doing a lot of our spiritual work in our sleep, possibly more than in our when we're awake,
Oh my
because we can, you know,
I can't believe you're saying this. That you're the first person who I've ever heard say that you're dreaming on multiple levels. And I'm a big dreamer, and I have
yeah,
like 5 dreams at once, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I can tell them when I'm learning, when I'm doing this, and that's
yeah,
why it's a little scary sometimes, to think of what happens after we do leave this plane. I'm going to leave that for the last question, and that's actually a question I have for you.
okay.
So Cheryl wants
Well,
to.
so it is kind of good to say a prayer before going to sleep, like ask for the spiritual light or for God or Jesus or whatever your, thing is, to work with you in your dreams, to work with you in your sleep. You can do a lot of cool stuff in your sleep, definitely.
Okay. And now I just want to make one comment before I do a question. It said, beautiful experience. Sylvia, can you tell us about your dream with Jesus? How about this? I will, and I'll leave it till the end because I want to make sure that Dr. Brock shares. And by the way, interesting thing, I mentioned it at the beginning. If you just tuned in, Dr. Brock has a TikTok um, handle, and I think it's really exciting because you're a relatively serious guy, and you have a very fun side to you where you're sharing spirituality with people who might not otherwise hear it on TikTok. So good on you. And if you want to check it out, it's Doc Brock, isn't it?
Yes,
Brock. Okay. So Cheryl wants to know what happens after death, and I realize that's a very big question, but if you could just give
it
us a
is.
little idea.
Um, it is a big question. So it does vary some from person to person. So in the same way we're dreaming on different, we have more than one dream, we have more than one part of us, and our soul does go to this cool place where there's souls. And it's kind of like heaven that is just this great place. And our soul has a lot of wisdom and, uh, it is the majestic, perfect thing where our soul goes. There are other parts to us that sometimes don't go to as high a level. Uh, Part of the reason it's important to meditate when we're physically alive and do the journal writing, those are two very important tools, are to help us learn how to get through all that stuff in this lifetime. Um, so sometimes I work with people and they'll ask me about a past loved one, and I see they could use some help because they're a little kind of confused. They're stuck in a certain pattern that they were in this lifetime. There are times there's part of us that does become a teacher, and that it's almost like being an angel, where the job is to help. In the same way we're working off karma here, we still have karma to work off, and it depends what that is. So there are times, um, like, my grandfather sometimes comes in. He was a very abundant people, so he brings in this nice abundant energy for me, and that's really nice. It is a positive thing where we're working up through these levels. Like,
Mhm.
I'll say, and I always say, meditation is really important. I have the basic soul meditation on my YouTube channel. That meditation is really designed to help us move through these levels. So when we do pass away, we're going to the highest level that we can.
All right. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
I think that there's this concept that we live, and then I'm not on here, so I still have that line going across me there. But we have this concept that we live and then we die and that we go someplace. And what I hear you saying is something that resonates with me is that we're alive, but we're experiencing many different levels, such as the
Yeah.
dream state, and that we are working through karma or lessons, whichever way you want to put it here as well as on the other dimensions at one time, which makes me personally feel not afraid to leave one dimension to the other because I do have those.
Yeah.
Could you speak to that where there's really, I know this is an audacious statement, there's really nothing to worry about, and that death is kind of really hyped up, but at the same time, it's important for us to experience this level as well. I don't want anyone checking out because it's better.
Yeah. There, we can connect to those very high places when we're still in our physical body. There are really miraculous things in all the levels. Um, in one way, in the highest spiritual level, it's just that thing that I described during my near death experience. It's just like everything's okay. Um, yes, I am definitely, when people say, oh, I wish I had an NDE, no, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. The part of the physical body getting hurt is not necessary, and that part is not being a happy camper. It's definitely hurting, and I still, in my body, luckily, I have very good genes. My dad's 90, he's very healthy, I'm healthy, but still there are things, aches and pains more on the right side of my body now that really got damaged in my NDE experience. But doing the meditation, training for to spend more time in these spiritual levels is just really important. There's also the thing of being of service and being in your loving mostly toward yourself. It becomes tricky when you're dealing with people in the world that are not so nice to you. How do
Mm.
you stay in loving yourself? Those are those skills are also very helpful in the spiritual realms.
Wait, that was worth freezing time for. Loving ourselves, and a lot of people will say things to us, and especially I'm finding today with the anonymity behind the social platforms, a lot of people will
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that are mean, and that's why I actually make people subscribe to be transparent when they come onto the show because you see the idea behind spirituality in my opinion is that we have open dialogue so we can understand and grow together, and
yeah,
sometimes people will get so judged and they'll start believing those words, and those words hold them in oppression, And they're very sensitive, lovely people that need our love. And I'm telling you right now, don't listen. Don't listen. Okay, so just before we read the first question, I wanted to read a comment. Newfie. Newfie comes on quite a bit. Dr. Brock, and he says, I've had a recurring dream where I was falling off a mountain, sometimes just falling out of the sky. Ground got closer and closer. I saw the snow, the grass, the boggy area, mountains, etc. Hit but wasn't hard. Is there anything you could speak to about that? Now, I realize you didn't come on as a dream interpreter, but do you have something to
Yeah,
say?
well, when people talk to me, the main thing is we call in the spiritual light to see what healing can take place. So that person, the light energy is going there. And what the thing of interpreting, I don't know if and even my hands are getting filled with energy. So sometimes people feel it, it feels tingly a little bit. So, you want to look at what is God's love toward you in there? What is God's lesson? And can there be any healing that takes place for you? If you're having a recurring dream, it's something from somewhere in your unconscious it's trying to be shown to you. So if you could look at it in a way and just however you would term it, but it's, dear God, please bless me and let me breathe in there. And I'd be interested to hear because I'm feeling a lot of energy in my hands right now if that
Mm-hmm.
person's doing something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's quite a bit, and
Okay.
maybe he can contact you. Like Dr. Brock does work with people, and you can go to his website. Could you say your website? It is down below in the links, but go ahead.
Yes. It's laurencebrock.com.
Nice. Okay, so
Pretty
we.
simple. My YouTube channel is Dr. Laurence Brock, so there's a lot of cool videos on there.
Yep, and all of those links I've posted down below for you guys that you can go and watch after the show. I also want to let you know that Shara asked about meditation. She wants to, and I want to make sure that you just let her know what the resource is and they can go to it because I'm sure you have a whole lot to say about meditation.
I do. The so the basic soul meditation on my YouTube is a really good basic meditation. It's very spiritual. There's some others that are like guided meditations for specific things, but that's what I suggest for people to do. The biggest thing in meditating is don't think you're going to get it right. And don't worry if you don't do it exactly right. So there are days that I'm very centered, I really connect, my mind isn't too chatty. Like yesterday, it was this funniest thing because I kept looking at my phone and I said to myself, don't look at your phone. I should have put it in the other room, but I kept looking. And then it's like, well, be gentle with myself and stick with it. So I think that's the biggest clue is don't think you need to do it perfectly. I don't think we're capable of totally quieting our mind for very long.
Mm-hmm.
And but focusing on your breathing, taking that time for that communion with you and spirit or with God, however you do that, that's the most important thing. It helps. A term I heard is fill up your spiritual gas tank, which is great. So you're getting that energy in a lot of times, even if you're not aware of it, but it is taking that time. Sometimes I suggest to people if you're having trouble, just commit to doing it even 1 minute a day, and then 2 minutes and 3 minutes, or however long you can, and understand sometimes. So I've been meditating almost every day for 40 years. And sometimes it is doing my best just to stay there without getting up. And then, of course, then I have to go to the bathroom, whatever it is. But then it's like, I'll just stay there and keep connecting in the best way I can. And
Yeah.
then see, right then it just connected in my heart. And it's like, there's that thing. Some days it doesn't get to, there's that thing. And it's still good to do.
And one of the people here said, Jim said, he seems so laid back. Well, maybe that's why, because you've been meditating for 40 years. I've got a really good question for you by Kay Tan. Why do you
Okay.
think so many NDEs with so many different experiences? I want to answer that, but you go ahead. You're the guest.
The way I like to look at it is that God speaks to us in our own unique language.
Yes.
And so that message is coming to, I, there's plus just there's there's levels like this way. There's also there's different, we could say there's different columns to God, and we are can be aware of this many. And then sometimes for other people it works better this way. Um, a good example is sometimes I work with people and they're from a different tradition. So when I'm not sure how to work with people, usually I'm more through the Jesus energy works for the most amount of people, but that's not for everybody. Sometimes it's Buddhist or Islam or, you know, Judaism or Baha'i or whatever it is. Like that's the way that we've come in to know it. And that, I think that somewhere in there is the answer to your question, which is we all have our own unique language.
Yes.
I'm very kinesthetic in feeling, so my NDE was very kinesthetic in feeling. And that's just how I am. Even in the physical world, it's like how my body feels, how my emotions are, just are really important. So I've learned to speak that language. It's kind of funny that that book, The Five Love Languages, is a good way to look at it. Like people have different languages, so God speaks to us in our language. So our NDEs are different. I think I needed a kick in the butt, but I think people who have negative NDEs need a bigger kick in the butt than me.
Yes. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. And I do believe that we are met where we're at. And I think a lot of people get their feathers ruffled when we talk about anything else. And I want everyone to know we're not trying to challenge. When we're having this open discussion, it's about having an open forum to grow spiritually and to get rid of the judgment that's within you so that we have a greater understanding about what our brothers and sisters are feeling, thinking, and doing. And I think, Dr. Brock, you do a really good job of that when you are kinesthetically feeling people out where they're standing and what would work best to heal their hearts, because that's exactly what you and I are trying to
Yeah,
do is heal hearts and heal minds. Okay, so Charles, I feel, is a good comment to address. So Charles Elliott says, we have lost 7 people, including my mother, since 2018. I'm sorry about that. My wide spent 4 months in the my wife maybe spent 4 months in the hospital and is bedridden. I'm spiritually drained and I think that I'm cursed or my family is cursed. Could we
yeah,
address?
yeah. So again, just some energy starting to come in. So um, there are curses, and so for you there, I'm not even seeing exactly what it is. There's just some dark energy around you. So we want to let some spiritual light come in there. There are things where our family line can be lined up better. There are there there are all sorts of negative things. There's curses, there's demons. Entities are generally negative. There's things called negative powers, and that, but there are positive things too, which so we invite those positive things in, which could
Mhm.
be the saints we were talking about, the archangels, the Holy Spirit, um, and we invite that in. So if that guy could just take a breath and let some of that light in, and on the physical level, it's just sad when, like, my mom passed away when I was in my 30s, and still when I think about it, I get sad because I miss her. Even though I know in the spirit she's doing really fine, when she had pancreatic cancer and she got sick, or she went from, we thought, kind of healthy, although she was losing more weight. She was happy to lose the weight because she wanted to, but it seemed a little suspicious. So when she went to the doctor, she found out she had pancreatic cancer. Within there, in a very short time, she passed away. She was in the hospital, and I knew after the next time I saw her, she was going to go. So I didn't go see her for a few days until I realized I should just go. But so I went to see her. Wonderful woman. And it was funny because I told her I was going to come see her. She said, "Oh, you have to wait. I need to put my makeup on." And it was like, she was just this very elegant woman. And so I went to see her, and I knew it was the last time I was going to see her. So I talked to her about, things I felt like I needed to complete with her. And, I think if she wasn't that thing of, oh, I need to put my makeup on, she would have passed away when I was there. So I
Right.
knew I had to leave. And then shortly after she passed away, I
Right.
remember after that going from feeling so deeply sad and in grief to being laughing, like connecting into the spirit, what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about this for this person to let some light into that situation.
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
a certain way, leave a little room in your consciousness that when we see things from the highest levels of spirit, all of these things are okay. You know, from the physical level, it is, and my brother passed away around then too, and we were so close, you know, and then when I think about that, it's like, oh man, like my best friend, you know, passed away when I was in my 30s, kind of thing. But for this, we want to let some light come in. There's some red energy coming in, which burns things off quickly. If you have any anger, which it seems like you do, which I understand because everyone does, it's like some of that, just breathe into that in your heart and let that love for yourself come in there. Okay.
So
So, yeah, some of that's moving now.
yes. So thank you so much for being so open and generous with your energy and time. So I did want to mention one thing. So I have a different take on I want to make sure that my audience understands this because when I invite
Okay.
someone, I'm very selective about who I invite, and I feel really good about inviting you. However, I feel very different about the family curse thing. I
Uh-huh.
feel, I feel like there's a vibration that we all carry. So this is very similar to what you're saying. I think it's just the word that I have opposition with. I feel
Okay.
that
Yeah.
you have a certain energy. You are pulled in and attracted to your energy, to that energy. So that's why I think sometimes in the family you'll have sequences of poor behavior or situations that are not favorable because everyone is sort of attracting the other. But I truly do believe that at this moment, at any time, if you're experiencing that, do not resign yourself to feeling oppressed by any curse
Yeah.
or
No,
any,
no.
because you can smash it right now with God's love, Jesus' love, whoever you decide is your God. And that is the most powerful energy. And you can just break through it. Don't be in chains. And I know, Dr. Lawrence, you were meaning. I know you believe that, and I get it.
Well,
I want to make sure they understand. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, I I might have used that term, but I was talking to that person. So I've never seen a family curse, but I do see people's family line needs, it's good to open it up. So part of that is to understand something really special and good comes through our family line. And a lot of times when people have that hurt or problems like that, or they really don't like how they were treated when they were young, they tend to block that. So when I'm talking, as I said, it's hard to describe things the right way. The way I'm talking, like in that situation, was specifically for that person. But
Yes,
there is a way to let that energy come in, and in that person's case, it can help those people that passed away. So it becomes kind of like you have a like a mission, a family mission, and is to understand that God's love comes through your family. It comes through your great great grandmother, great great grandfather, even further back. This line comes through to you and brings these spiritual gifts with it. And when you can see that as open up for a lot of people, that helps a lot of things. The cool thing, it also helps our children, which I'm always a big fan of.
yes. Thank you. And I totally get that, what you mean by you need to speak to a specific person about
Yeah.
that. Also, some people really do. I mean, your belief systems, people, not you, are really what are driving you and creating the
Yeah.
reality in front of you. So if you do believe that, then it does exist. And that's why it's so important to do a check on your feelings and your thoughts and how real, and meeting with Dr. Brock or even coming to the show allows you to sort of open up your mind to other possibilities of healing. And when my father passed away, I feel very fortunate. I was only 27, so I felt kind of robbed. I was angry and I was traumatized. However, he did come to me in the dream and he explained to me a bunch of stuff. So I feel healed by that. So look to your dreams, open up avenues, and don't close your mind to them coming to you in that format. If they would have showed up in front of me, Dr. Brock, I think I would have fainted, but passed right
Well,
out.
so like you're saying, we want to use all information toward healing and our spiritual unfoldment. So when I'm talking and I'm saying we can't quite explain it, all of these things we can't quite explain it. So we look for that information, even so there are things when I'm working with people, there can be curses, but I'm looking for that and labeling it as a way to clear that and get rid of it. Okay. And they're always there for a reason of some lesson we need to, sometimes we just need it, that struggle to learn. So that's kind of what it's like as opposed,
Yes.
if everything was totally perfect and fine all the time, we wouldn't learn a lot of times. I don't totally agree with that, but a lot of times that's true. I do believe in learning through seeing positive examples and learning that way, but you
Hmm.
really have to choose into it. In the
Yeah.
same way, my near death experience was a kick in my butt. I needed to be more spiritual. Sometimes we need a kick in the butt to do that.
Yeah, I want to ask your advice on something. I used to do a lot of NDE videos, and
Uh-huh.
some of them even have 72,000 views, more than that. And
Nice.
but I started to slow down on them because I received a lot of messages about people feeling addicted to them. And I thought
Yeah.
you have a PhD in this. I thought they're addicted to them, they can't stop watching them, and then they feel very anxious because they think that they're not in the right place in space, and that they feel that maybe they should be passing away, or they'll say things like, I can't wait to pass away. I kind
Yeah.
of hear your advice about joy and how they can live their best life today.
Yeah. Well, it is, you can't not be in the right place. That is, it just 100% cannot be. There are some choices within what is the right place. So there are ways to choose into better and nicer and gentler and more loving things. And if you're feeling that way, that is part of your learning. Like, how do you get those things better, be in a more positive place? And this, I could say journal writing is really good for that, but also and meditation, but following those things inside of you that are just kind of cool, or whatever gets your mojo going, or you know, I it could be mopping the floor. It's easy to see the work I do, how amazingly cool it is, but I also cook. I used to be a chef. That's really amazingly cool. I get to work with pretty high level athletes. That's really cool. Businessmen, I have a client who is so good at making money. It's like the spirit comes in there, and this guy just, even that can be a really cool thing. So whatever that thing is, and so years ago I taught this. Did one? It was in person. Did one of these things like this, and it was a woman saying, "Oh, I know I'm spiritual in this," and it's like I could see right away. And a lot of times it's true. Being a parent, her being a mother, and it's like, wow, that's like the most spiritual thing in the world. So, and as soon as she got that, you could see her eyes lit up and go, "Ah!" And she connected to it internally, as well as getting that information.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere in each person is that message about what is that really cool, awesome thing that you could do to express who you are in this world. Just follow that. That's the main thing.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so I want to go throw back for a minute because it probably made you feel uncomfortable with the curse thing. And I want to
That's okay.
I want to kind of validate why I say that, because there is this illness, which I'm not even going to mention the name, that
Okay.
my grandpa had, that my dad had, that and because I look like my dad, spend a lot of time with my dad, that I
Yeah.
believe that I was gonna get. I'm like, no. I always talk to my liver, and I'm like, no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
No. part of it. And I refuse to allow those types of negative thoughts to come in. However, I have heard that word. And what does somebody do? So I'm going to turn this into a question to be helpful
Okay.
rather than for it to scare me. What does somebody do when they refuse, they want to go with the light. They don't want to acknowledge it, but it's kind of there. It's in their head. What should you do to eliminate it?
Well, that thing you're talking about is not a curse in your family. So part of the reason of labeling things is how to clear it and get rid of it. So, but we could look through the genetics or the hereditary thing. So there are different lines there, and we can just send the light to that. Sometimes it is you have to take the steps and go, no, I'm going to stop the family karma or whatever you call it and go, I'm going to be different. And sometimes that's what you do. There are ways to clear curses, there's ways to clear these negative things. And it's so what I usually look to a past life where that pattern happened or where it started and ask for the light to come in. By bringing it up into our consciousness and asking for a blessing or how, again, there are different words you could use there. You let that spiritual light in. Um, when I work with people, like those couple of people, the energy just came in right away. That's my intention. It is my intention to be of service in that way, to be open to God's love and God's light. And then that is it. There, so um, that's the thing you do, and use every bit of information for that, whether it's I don't, any, there's so many things like a kind of food you like, or if you have allergies, there's acupuncture points that are blocked, or aches
Right.
and pains in your body. It's like, well, what is the information in there that can unfold God's love and light for me? And that's like, oh, it's starting to open up just because I asked for it. It's like, yeah. And then you don't even need to necessarily know why. Sometimes we need to get a lot of information before that door opens up. Sometimes it just, God help me, and it starts to happen.
Okay, we got questions piling up and like 8 minutes
Okay.
left. So first of all, I'm going to leave Maria's to the end because she wants to know about your healing ministry. Obviously,
Okay.
they want to go and get healed, so we'll leave that for this. This is the second to last. Sunshari Sarkar says, "Here it goes. God answers my smallest to biggest prayers, except my desire to find love and start a family. It's been
Yeah.
40 years, and sometimes I wonder if it's something to do with my past life karma."
Well, the answer to that about everything is yes. So, and so I can start to see something there. If that person has a past life that it looks like they chose caring about animals over their family. And so we'll send light to that. So that's not in this lifetime. Um, sometimes we have things we need to spend time in. A lot of times things can be cleared, but sometimes, so something like that, it looks like we can clear most of it, and we'll see how much can happen in this short time. So you just want to breathe and let some light. There's like a purple, blue, more lavenderish light that comes in. Okay, so that person just connected into the spirit about that. And so they might start to feel something moving. If they don't feel it, it's fine. It's definitely moving.
Okay, so now we'll wind it up by saying I absolutely loved having you here and thank you for sharing who you are and what you do and let us know a little bit about it. And for the person who asked about speaking about talking about my dream of Jesus, I think that if you watch my other videos, you'll see I literally talk about it almost every single video. So I'm going to let Dr. Brock, go ahead and do that. And if that person wants to email me, you can support at silviaisachsen.com. Otherwise, let's go. Tell us what you do, Doctor.
What I do is kind of what I was doing there. So I mostly work on the phone and over video, and I have actually for many years. I started doing that like 15 years ago. Um, some of it is my daughter, who's about to turn 17, was young, and her mom was going back to work, and I just felt like it'd be better for her if I was home more, so I started working on the phone. people call me about all sorts of things: physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, business, relationship stuff. And I look at, there's usually it includes looking at past life things and clearing those patterns up, and the negative energy that comes in and kind of preys on our weaknesses. The negative energy's job is to strengthen us, really, but it gets a little carried away, like it feels like challenging us, even though it's supposed to strengthen us. It doesn't. It sometimes it over challenges us, so we can get rid of some of that stuff. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of things. You're talking about the family line. That might be something to correct. Uh, there can be, I mean, also, I'm not a medical doctor, but so spiritually, things can come up that are physical that can clear, dietary things, vitamins. I mean, any of that stuff. Mostly what it is I get this very positive energy in there. And as I said, a lot of times I'm talking to people about this stuff, and then the energy kind of sneaks in behind, and they obviously go, "Oh, I feel better. What happened?"
So
So,
this is a gift that is a culmination of your near-death experience where you started to feel the heat in your hands and the
yes.
healing. And then it's a culmination of you working with other experiences that have layered on top of that experience. Wonderful. Yeah, I just don't want to end this. There's this other person who had an NDE, and
Uh-huh.
she came back with special gifts too. And is
Well,
that a normal thing for people who have had an NDE, Doc Brock?
I there are definitely a lot of people that say that. I don't know normal would mean, more than 50% of the people, but I haven't really looked into that much. And some of the very cool spiritual teachers and healing teachers that I studied with that definitely have amazing things, either spiritually or healing physically, they had near death experiences. So I know it is somewhat of a thing. It kind of gives us a look into this other dimension or level or whatever you want to call it in a way without our physical body. So there is no doubt about it. And, in the times in my physical life when I have doubts, I can just think of that and go, no, it's real. Even though part of me thinks it's not, that
Okay.
it's like, and so I've studied, I mean, I have made it my life's mission and I study a lot with people. I've gone to school. There's always more. And if you think there's not, you're wrong. There's always more to do, and you can always go further and learn more. I'm always looking, how can I help people more? I'm very good at not labeling things, but I notice my mind comes in and wants to know what something is. And that's like, well, how can I do that without holding back that spiritual part?
Exactly. Doesn't
Yeah.
Doc make you want to just like call him up and sit down and chat with him like right now? He does. So we do have to wind it up, but I want to let everybody know
Good.
who's watching right now. You can post your comments below, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and all of that to support this channel if that's what you want to do. Also, you can become a member about that. And I forgot to mention to that woman, my dream was very private to me, and I keep it in my membership because it moved me so much. But also, all of Doc Brock's links are below, and I encourage you to check them out. And maybe you can tell us what your experience was working with Doc Brock. Thanks again for your
Thank you.
vulnerability doing it live. Like, this is live. I
It's really
appreciate
cool. I
it.
like doing the live and working with people. It's very cool. The different questions that come in. It really, because you can talk about it, but when it happens, that's the really cool thing.
Exactly. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much for watching. The hour went by like that. We'll see you next Saturday at 11 a.m. And next week, I will be interviewing the Passion Harvest girl, Louisa. And so I look forward to seeing you there. Now, we're going to have two next week. 11 a.m. is going to be just me, and 3 p.m. will be Louisa. Talk to you soon. Thank you, Doc Brock, again. I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you. You do a great job.
Thank you.